Chapter 1, the biggest, most sensational news in Bridgewater recently was undoubtedly that Michael Sterling, CEO of Sterling Group, had spared no expense at an auction to buy a necklace valued at over $100 million, all to please his beloved wife. Michael Sterling and Alina Miller had been married for 7 years, their love deep and devoted, a romance celebrated throughout Bridgewater. At this moment, he was sitting in a high-end boutique, having booked the entire floor accompanying Alina as she tried on clothes. While numerous shop assistants waited outside the fitting room for Alina, they couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves in hushed tones. The necklace Mrs. Sterling was wearing just now, that's the one from the news, worth over $100 million, right? The color, the quality, it's truly exquisite. Mrs. Sterling is so lucky. How did she get Mr. Sterling to love her so devotedly? Mr. Sterling has the looks, the physique, so many have tried to get close to him over the years and couldn't even get near. Not only that, but Mr. Sterling also pampers his wife exceptionally. Look, Mrs. Sterling has been trying on clothes for so long, yet he's still so focused, giving his opinion on every outfit. Any other man would have lost patience long ago. Someone raised a doubt. Could a man really love a woman so devotedly? I don't believe it. Isn't there the 7-year itch? Mrs. Sterling and Mr. Sterling are about to hit 7 years of marriage. What if they can't make it past 7 years? As they chatted, a bolder one among them had an idea. Seizing the rare opportunity to get close to Michael Sterling, she offered to get him some water. As she approached Michael Sterling, she deliberately stumbled, leaning her entire body towards his embrace. But just as she was about to fall onto him, Michael Sterling, with quick reflexes, frowned in displeasure and dodged to the side. The woman fell heavily to the ground. Looking at the woman's alluring eyes, a hint of disgust surfaced in Michael Sterling's. He turned and waved to his bodyguard. "Deal with this." The bodyguard immediately stepped forward and dragged the woman out. Even so, he seemed to feel it wasn't enough. He actually took off his suit jacket and ordered security to bring him a new one. "Ellie will think I'm dirty when she sees me later and won't want to hug me." The onlookers didn't dare respond, merely bowing their heads and sighing softly. Mr. Sterling truly loves Mrs. Sterling to his bones, otherwise why would he be so careful? Alina Miller, emerging from the fitting room, happened to witness this scene. She stood there, her gaze somewhat distant. Yes, Michael Sterling loved her so much it was known throughout the city. No matter when, he always gave her a complete sense of security. She disliked the smell of alcohol, so he stopped attending social engagements and never touched a drop, even at the cost of a multi-billion-dollar project. Not wanting to make her jealous, he never looked other women in the eye. His eyes were only for her. Even if another woman accidentally touched him, he would cautiously apologize to her, afraid she would leave him. When the Sterling family elders disapproved of their relationship, he used every means possible to let everyone know that he couldn't live without her. It was precisely because of his intense love and sincere devotion that Alina Miller was willing to give up everything to stay by his side. No one knew she wasn't from this world. A few years ago, she had died in her original world and was bound by a system to transmigrate into the world where Michael Sterling existed. Only by successfully making him fall in love with her could Alina be resurrected in her original world. Years of companionship and her efforts to win him over had finally made Alina Michael Sterling's one true love, making him love her to death. During a kidnapping 7 years ago, Alina was abducted by Michael Sterling's arch-rival, who demanded he cripple his own legs in exchange for her release. At that time, Michael Sterling didn't hesitate to cripple his legs. Blood gushed out and he nearly lost his life. From then on, the golden boy became disabled, confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. At that moment, Alina's mission was also completely successful. But facing Michael Sterling, who loved her more than his own life, Alina hesitated. She couldn't bear to leave this world anymore, couldn't bear to leave Michael Sterling. Before the system disappeared, it had asked her 2 questions. Was she truly determined to stay in this world? And if, in the future, Michael Sterling betrayed her, what would she do? At that time, Alina looked at Michael Sterling, who loved her deeply, and nodded firmly. "I've decided to stay." But she didn't answer the second question. Because subconsciously, she couldn't even imagine that the man who willingly crippled his legs for her would ever betray her. After that day, the system completely vanished and never reappeared for so many years, Michael Sterling had indeed loved her to his core, always putting her first. Being loved so deeply, everyone thought she should be incredibly happy, and she should be smiling. But at this moment, she couldn't bring herself to smile at all. Chapter 2, Composing herself, In.I'm Miller slowly walked out. Michael Sterling looked up at her, his cold gaze instantly softening, his eyes focused solely on her. They went to a pre-booked restaurant for dinner, but In.I'm remained gloomy. Michael Sterling thought In.I'm had seen the earlier scene and quickly apologized. "My Ellie, are you angry? She didn't touch me just now. Please don't ignore me, okay?" In.I'm Miller didn't answer, and Michael Sterling grew even more anxious. "What's been wrong lately? Why do you always seem unhappy? Is it because I've been too busy with work and haven't spent time with you? I'm sorry, I've been tied up with a project recently. It'll be over soon, and then I can focus on you." In.I'm Miller slowly looked up, her gaze still distant. "Michael, is there really nothing you want to tell me?" Michael Sterling didn't know why she would suddenly ask this. He froze for a moment, then unconsciously rubbed his fingers together. It was a subconscious gesture he made when nervous. In.I'm saw it, but he still shook his head. "No." A dull ache throbbed in In.'s heart, but she didn't press further. Towards the end of dinner, a waiter brought over a cake Michael Sterling had ordered long ago, asking In.I'm to blow out the candles and make a wish. Today wasn't her birthday, but throughout their years together, for all sorts of holidays and anniversaries, big or small, Michael Sterling always made sure to give her a sense of occasion. The lights were dimmed. The moment she closed her eyes to make a wish, the sound of a phone vibrating suddenly broke the silence. She opened her eyes and saw Michael Sterling swiping his phone screen, looking at an incoming message. In the darkened restaurant, the reflection on the glass clearly showed the message on the screen. "Michael, what should I do? There's a power outage, I'm so scared." Then, she saw Michael Sterling's lips curve slightly in a soft chuckle. The next moment, Michael Sterling's thoughts echoed in her ear. Such a young girl, scared of a simple power outage. Well, I should probably go check on her. She's so clumsy. In.I'm Miller's face turned pale, her heart clenching violently. No one knew that before the system disappeared, it had given her an ability. She could hear Michael Sterling's thoughts. All these years, his heart had only ever held her. But until 3 months ago, another girl's name began to appear frequently in his thoughts. Vivian Summers. She was the younger sister of his good friend, a recent university graduate whom he had recently placed in his company for experience. Before In.I'm could react, his thoughts sounded again. "But it's our 7th anniversary today. Leaving now wouldn't be good." As he hesitated, the phone screen lit up again. Vivian Summers had sent several more messages. She didn't say a word, just sent some coquettish, crying emojis. This time, Michael Sterling finally couldn't sit still. He hastily closed his phone, told In.I'm there was an urgent matter at the company he needed to handle, and had his assistant wheel him away quickly. Watching Michael Sterling's retreating figure, In.'s heart sank to rock bottom. She sat slumped in her chair, feeling cold all over. In all their years together, Michael Sterling had never lied to her. But ever since Vivian Summers appeared, his lies began, one after another. In.'s heart had never been in such turmoil. She tried to summon the system. She wanted to see how much love Michael Sterling still had for her. But no matter how she called, the system gave her no response. Only then did she realize that ever since she decided to stay in this world, the system had completely disappeared. When she chose to stay in this world, she had gambled that Michael Sterling would never let her lose. But now she no longer dared to be sure. That night, In.I'm Miller didn't sleep well. In the middle of the night, thunder suddenly rumbled. A pair of hands reached out from behind her, holding her tightly. Sometime during the night, Michael Sterling had returned. He must have been afraid of waking her, so his movements were very light, which was why she only just realized. He knew she was most afraid of such stormy weather, so even if he was sound asleep, he would instinctively hold her in his arms, his thoughts murmuring, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Turning to look at the handsome man sleeping beside her, In.'s mind once again fell into deep thought. Could a man who loved her so deeply really fall for someone else? She hugged Michael Sterling back tightly, burying her head in his neck. But the next second, she saw a large, bright red hickey on his neck. Chapter 3. Early in the morning, when Michael Sterling woke up, he found In.I'm Miller gone from his side. His heart inexplicably panicked. Without even bothering to put on a jacket, he rushed out. After a search, he finally found Alina in the garden, sitting alone on the swing set, staring blankly. Hearing the commotion, Alina Miller slowly turned her head. Michael Sterling seemed to have fallen. Usually a neat freak, his pajamas were now stained with dirt, and his face was full of worry and panic. Ever since she was kidnapped, Michael Sterling couldn't bear to be away from her even more than before. As soon as he opened his eyes and didn't see her, he would become exceptionally flustered. Now, seeing her safe and sound, he immediately rushed to her and held her tightly in his arms. "My Ellie, don't suddenly leave my sight like this again. I'll worry." She leaned on his shoulder, listening to his thoughts. "Thank goodness Ellie is okay. If anything happens to her again, I won't be able to live on." Alina Miller's heart trembled. She slowly raised her head and finally spoke. "What's that red mark on your neck?" Michael Sterling's hand subconsciously touched the red mark. He froze for a moment, then explained. "Probably a mosquito bite." She gave a bitter smile. "It's already autumn. Are there still mosquitoes?" Looking at her empty eyes, Michael Sterling finally came to his senses. "So, you've been unhappy all these days because you were afraid He didn't finish his sentence, directly pulling her into his embrace. "My Ellie, I will only love you in this lifetime. If I have someone else in my heart, may I be struck by lightning and die without a complete corpse." Hearing such a dire oath, Alina Miller couldn't bear it and covered his mouth. "Don't say it, I believe you." She looked at him, her eyes firm and sincere. "Michael, if one day you really fall in love with someone else, you must tell me. I won't cling to you. But if you lie to me, you will never see me again in this lifetime." Michael Sterling's body trembled involuntarily. He held her tighter. "I won't, my Ellie. You're the only one in my heart. I can't lose you, and you must never leave me." She pressed tightly against his chest, wanting to hear more, but only this sentence remained. She sighed inwardly. Perhaps she was really overthinking. But before she could relax for a few days, Michael Sterling brought Vivian Summers home the very next day. He put his arm around Alina Miller and explained casually. "My Ellie, her lease is up, and she hasn't found a place to live yet, so she'll stay with us for a few days. I promised her brother I'd take care of her. I can't let her be homeless." Alina Miller felt a chill. Her gaze unconsciously fell on the necklace around Vivian's neck, identical to her own. This necklace was one of a kind in the whole world, which was why it had fetched a high price of $100 million at the auction. Now that Vivian was wearing an identical one, it meant one of their necklaces was a fake. Michael Sterling clearly noticed too, his eyes instantly darkening. It was Vivian Summers who spoke up to explain. "Ellie, please don't misunderstand. I saw your necklace in the news and thought it was so beautiful, so I bought a replica to wear for fun." Although she said so, Alina's heart still felt heavy, as if a stone was pressing on it, making it hard to breathe. To make matters worse, Vivian Summers then looked at Michael Sterling, half joking, half serious, and asked, "Michael, who do you think looks better wearing this necklace, me or Ellie?" Michael Sterling froze, then immediately pulled Alina into his arms, smiling at her. "Of course, my Ellie looks better." Vivian Summers forced a couple of laughs but quietly lowered her head, clearly disappointed. Alina lay in his arms, but she heard his thoughts. "Be good, don't feel wronged. In front of Ellie, I can only say this." The moment she heard this, Alina's body trembled involuntarily. She looked up and saw Michael Sterling's gaze directed at Vivian Summers. As if sensing his gaze, Vivian Summers smiled and curved her lips. At this moment, his thoughts sounded again. "You're wearing the original. Of course, you look better." Chapter 4. Alina Miller felt as if she had been struck by lightning, unable to recover for a long time. She returned to her room, looked at herself in the mirror, and kept asking herself if everything that had just happened was real. Had she misheard? How could Michael Sterling say such things? She must have misheard. She could only tell herself this again and again. For the next few days, Vivian Summers would go out and come home with Michael Sterling almost every day. She worked at Michael Sterling's company, so it was perfectly normal for her to commute with him. But every time Alina saw her walking with him, she felt as if an invisible hand was gripping her throat, suffocating her. As if to reassure her, Michael Sterling always kept his distance from Vivian Summers at home, even speaking to her coldly. But Vivian Summers, whether intentionally or not, would always appear when Alina and Michael Sterling were alone. When he watched movies with her, Vivian Summers would deliberately sit nearby with popcorn. When they had a candlelight dinner, she would coincidentally show up at their restaurant. When they went to the rooftop to watch fireworks, she would also stand behind them with a camera, ostensibly to capture the beautiful moment for them. Michael Sterling could have directly sent her away, but he just smiled it off, tacitly allowing her presence. In.I'm Miller felt utterly exhausted. She didn't want to be a suspicious wife, but every time she looked at the two of them, she felt an indescribable pain. That night, In.I'm Miller suddenly developed a fever. She huddled under the covers, her whole body burning as if on fire, frighteningly hot. Michael Sterling was extremely anxious, using ice packs to cool her down, and every 10 minutes, he would hold her and feed her fever-reducing medicine. In.I'm Miller was delirious with fever, reflexively avoiding the cup he brought to her lips, turning her head away. Seeing her like this, Michael Sterling showed no impatience, instead coaxing her gently. "My Ellie, be good. Take the medicine and you won't feel so bad." She lay against his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat, and with difficulty, opened her eyes to meet his deeply affectionate gaze. "Good girl, take the medicine and then sleep. I'll stay here with you." In.I'm Miller struggled to open her mouth and drink the medicine he fed her, then lay back down on the bed. He held her hand tightly, gently stroking the back of it comfortingly. In the quiet room, she once again heard his thoughts. "My Ellie, go to sleep now. The little imp said she was in a car accident. I don't know how she is. I need to leave quickly." In.I'm Miller looked at him in disbelief, just in time to see him take out his phone, his back to her, replying to messages. The worry and anxiety in his eyes were almost overflowing, but it was for someone else. Her eyes stung uncontrollably. She hurriedly closed them, not wanting him to see her reddened eyes. A moment later, he came to her side, softly called her name a few times, and when she didn't respond, he sighed in relief and then left in a hurry. At this moment, In.I'm Miller's heart felt like it was being torn apart. She opened her eyes in despair, tears instantly falling like broken pearls. The phone beside her pillow suddenly flashed. She sat up and tapped the screen. It was a message from Vivian Summers. "Ellie, take a look at Michael's phone. There's a surprise." She turned her head to look at his phone, which he had left on the table. A wave of unease washed over her. Knowing it was a trap, she still, as if possessed, swiped the screen open. Michael Sterling's phone password had always been her birthday, so she easily got in. Her chat was pinned at the top on Messenger, their profile picture was a photo of them together, and all the chat backgrounds were also her pictures. But among those conversations, Vivian Summers' name was glaringly conspicuous. After a long hesitation, she finally, with trembling hands, opened their conversation. Gradually uncovering the truth, Chapter 5, they had added each other on Messenger only a few months ago, but the chat history was exceptionally long. It took her a long time to scroll to the very beginning. The first message was sent by Vivian Summers when she first added him. "Hello, Michael. I'm Ethan Summers' sister. Please take care of me in the future." Following that were several heart-filled, coquettish emojis. Michael Sterling replied several days later, his tone cold and distant. "Don't send these things randomly. My wife doesn't like it." Vivian Summers sent a pouting emoji, and then there was no follow-up. In the following days, she continued to send him cute emojis, but he never replied. She confessed her feelings to him on Messenger, but he ignored her. Until one day, he uncharacteristically sent her a message. "I drank too much yesterday. Let's pretend it never happened. Give me a number for how much you want. Don't let Ellie find out, or I won't let you off." Vivian Summers hesitated for a moment on her end, then actually sent him a nude photo of herself. "Michael, I'm younger than Ellie and more tender. Don't you really like me? But if you really didn't like it, why were you so rough last night, so forceful? My body is covered in your marks." Usually, when faced with such a situation, he would verbally insult the other person to the extreme, but this time, he said nothing. From then on, the two became regular bed partners. In countless moments when In.I'm Miller could imagine Michael Sterling leaving her, he was with Vivian Summers. Late for birthday banquets, suddenly leaving on their 7th anniversary, delaying their planned trips. On the night of the power outage, in the minute she was making her wish, he sent Vivian Summers a picture of lingerie, his tone flirtatious. "Put this on, and I'll come keep you company." And that necklace, identical to her own. Vivian Summers had mentioned to him more than once how much she liked it. "Michael, I really like this necklace. Please, just let me wear it once." Michael Sterling initially refused coldly. "I'll buy you another one. You choose," but she was relentless. "No, I just want this one, the only one in the world. Besides, Ellie has worn it for so long. It's no big deal if I wear it for a bit, right?" Then she kept sending him pouting, coquettish emojis, and he finally relented. "Don't fuss, I'll bring it to you tonight." She was overjoyed and, in turn, sent him a picture of condoms in a drawer. "This is your reward." Michael Sterling replied instantly. This isn't enough. Reading on, word by word, became increasingly devastating. Eleanor Miller gripped her phone tightly, her face deathly pale, as if struck by lightning. Tears fell, one by one, onto the screen. She felt as if her heart had been hollowed out, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. She couldn't believe it. How could she believe it? During this past period, while she had waited for him to come home countless times, planned their future, or slept soundly, he had been in another woman's arms, but this was Michael Sterling, the man who loved her to his bones in public, and who had also said he would love her for a lifetime in private. Flipping through those explicit chat logs again and again, Eleanor's heart ached as if it were about to split open. Suddenly, she clutched her chest, the pain making it hard to breathe. The next second, her vision went black, and she fainted completely. Chapter 6, she didn't know how long she had been unconscious. When Eleanor Miller woke up, she was already in the hospital. She opened her eyes and saw Michael Sterling by her side, his face anxious. Her heart began to twist again, aching violently. Every word he had said to Vivian Summers, every flirtatious exchange, was like a knife, stabbing fiercely at her heart. Tears suddenly fell. She opened her mouth, only to find she couldn't utter a single word. Her heart ached as if she were dying. She clutched her chest, desperately biting her lip, crying silently. Seeing her like this, Michael Sterling froze. He frantically called for the doctor, then held her tightly in his arms. "My Ellie, where does it hurt?" "Don't be afraid, I'm here with you." All the doctors in the hospital gathered around her bed, anxiously examining her. After a series of diagnoses, the doctor finally reached a conclusion. "Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Sterling has suffered a severe shock and has developed aphasia." His body stiffened, and dark glints flickered continuously in his eyes. Who was it who shocked my Ellie? With that, he summoned his assistant, vowing to find the person who harmed Eleanor Miller, even if he had to turn the entire city upside down. The assistant hurried away, leaving only him and Eleanor Miller in the room again. She was held in his embrace. No matter what comforting words he said, she remained unresponsive, just silently weeping like a puppet. Michael Sterling was frantic, holding her and constantly consoling her. "My Ellie, what's wrong with you? Tell me, please. Who hurt you? I'll make them pay 100 times over." Eleanor Miller wept silently, biting her lip until it bled. The person who had hurt her the most was the person she loved the most. For the next few days, Michael Sterling postponed all his work and stayed at the hospital, wholeheartedly taking care of her. She remained the same as before, not crying, not laughing, not speaking. Michael Sterling remembered that when her appetite was poor, she loved the pastries from the Southside Bakery, so he personally drove out to buy them. During this interval, Vivian Summers actually came. Eleanor Miller's current state seemed to be exactly what Vivian Summers had hoped for. She smiled, placed the lilies she was holding on the bedside table, a look of triumph on her face. "Ellie, I bought your favorite lilies. You must be wondering why I know you like lilies, right? Because my favorite flower is the same as yours. So every time Michael buys you flowers, he sends me an identical bouquet." Recalling Michael Sterling coming home every night with fresh flowers, Eleanor Miller suddenly felt a wave of nausea. She looked up at Vivian Summers, only to see her still looking smug. "Ellie, you and Michael have been together for 7 years. No matter how much love there was, he's tired of sleeping with you. Men, they all like novelty. Michael said, compared to you, he prefers how I am in bed." Each word, wanton and cruel, struck Eleanor Miller's heart heavily. Her whole body trembled. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug deep into her flesh, yet she didn't even notice. Vivian Summers still had that carefree look. She took out her phone from her pocket, found a few photos, and held them in front of Eleanor. "Here, Ellie, take a look. Does Michael do this many things with you in private?" She desperately wanted to look away, but her gaze uncontrollably drifted to the screen. And after clearly seeing the entangled bodies in the picture, she finally couldn't help but lean over the side of the bed and retch. Chapter 7. After Vivian Summers left, Miller went berserk, smashing everything in the hospital room to pieces. Her eyes were red as she violently threw everything within her sight to the ground. When Michael Sterling pushed open the door, all he saw was a complete mess and her, barefoot, standing on shards of glass, her eyes crimson. He reacted as if facing a great enemy, immediately rushing forward to embrace her. The broken glass shards dug deeply into her flesh, blood pooling on the floor, yet she seemed to feel no pain, just staring at him numbly. Michael Sterling had never been so flustered, his heart aching as if it were about to shatter. He wanted to hold her, but she struggled desperately. She gripped his arm tightly, finally bursting into tears. "I want to go home, let me go home." After 7 days, she finally spoke her first words. Michael Sterling was overjoyed, holding her tightly. "Okay, home, I'll take you home right now." Miller helplessly let go of his arm, tears streaming down her face. She had no home anymore. The home she wanted to return to, she could no longer go back. She had given up everything for him, and now she didn't even have a place to call her own. Miller didn't understand how she had ended up in such a state. She understood even less why, when they were so in love and everything was progressing smoothly and happily towards the future, their future almost clearly imprinted before them. A happy ending just a few steps away. He had suddenly stopped halfway to take another woman's hand. When they returned home, Vivian Summers was still there. She sat in the living room, like the lady of the house, using Alina's cup, drinking Alina's favorite coffee. Miller's face instantly turned extremely dark. She trembled as she looked at Michael Sterling, trying her best to control her emotions. "Make her leave. Now, immediately." Michael Sterling hadn't expected her to suddenly make such a request and seemed somewhat hesitant. Before he could utter any excuse, Miller cut him off without hesitation. "If she doesn't leave, I will." Michael Sterling anxiously embraced her. "What nonsense are you talking? You're the lady of this house. Where would you go?" With that, he looked at Vivian Summers. "Ellie doesn't want you living here. You should move out." Vivian Summers didn't argue, just glanced at Michael Sterling, then turned, went upstairs to get her suitcase and left. Only after seeing her leave with her own eyes did Miller go upstairs, then slammed the door shut, locking herself in the room. Michael Sterling knocked gently on the door, his tone humble and pleading. "My Ellie, can you talk to me about what's wrong? Please, don't keep it bottled up. Didn't you always want to go to the Caribbean? Tomorrow, we'll take a private jet there and stay for a month. My Ellie, I personally cooked your favorite lasagna. Can you open the door and try some? Just one bite, please." But no matter what Michael Sterling said, how he begged or coaxed her, she wouldn't say a word, nor would she acknowledge him. Outside the door, Michael Sterling was frantic, and his thoughts passing through the door clearly reached her ears. What on earth is wrong with Ellie? If she keeps this up, not eating or drinking, what will happen to her health? As long as Ellie eats, I'd even give up a few years of my life. My Ellie, are you trying to worry me to death? She leaned against the door, weakly sliding to the floor. Why, when his heart so clearly loved her so deeply, did he still betray her, hurt her like this? Could a person's heart truly hold two people at the same time? Chapter 8. A few days later, she opened the door alone and went to the yard for some air. Michael Sterling seemed to be out, and the maids had cleaned up early and left. At this moment, the entire villa was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. She looked at the yard full of lilies, and for the first time, found the scent of lilies so nauseating. These flowers were all personally planted by Michael Sterling for her, collected from the best lily seeds from all over the world. The swing set by the fence, he and she had built it together. He said that when they had children, he would push her and the children on the swing. The railings of the fence were carefully smoothed by craftsmen, all because one night she came out and accidentally scraped herself on the fence, and he said he didn't want her to get even a tiny bit hurt again. As long as she liked something, he would even pluck the stars from the sky for her. What was real and what was fake? His adoration for her was real, his kindness to her was real, his spoiling her to the core was real, but his betrayal was also real. She didn't want to face this yard full of lilies anymore and was about to turn and leave. Just then, a distant car headlight refracted through the shadows of the trees. The car stopped 50 meters from the gate. A moment later, Michael Sterling and Vivian Summers got out of the car together. He walked freely, his legs clearly no different from a normal person's. In.I'm Miller was instantly thunderstruck. When had Michael Sterling's legs recovered? She hadn't known at all. She stood there dazedly, watching Vivian Summers walk up to him and intimately hook her arm around his neck. "Michael, stay with me a little longer, please." Michael Sterling raised an eyebrow. "Wasn't what we just did enough?" Vivian Summers shyly lowered her head, rubbing against his chin like a kitten. "You know what I mean." "Michael, anyway, Ellie isn't coming out of her room now. Why don't I stay home and keep you company tonight?" At the mention of In.I'm Miller, Michael Sterling's expression instantly changed. He coldly pulled her arm off him, his words carrying a chill. "Don't get any ideas about Ellie. I'm warning you, stay away from Ellie from now on. If you dare let Ellie know about us, you know the consequences." Vivian Summers stuck out her tongue. "Got it, don't be angry. I was just suggesting." In.I'm Miller stepped back, one step after another, then fled back to her room as if escaping. She covered her mouth, struggling not to cry out loud. Why was he doing this to her? Exactly how many things was he still hiding from her? In.I'm Miller didn't understand what Michael Sterling wanted. He had hidden the fact that his legs had long since healed. Was it just to keep her, to make her stay devotedly and never leave? She had stayed because of his sincerity, but she never expected even that sincerity to be fake. One thing after another completely destroyed her defenses, leaving her utterly defeated. She regretted it so much, regretted falling in love with Michael Sterling, and regretted even more staying in this strange world for him. Her heart ached unbearably. She clutched her chest, feeling as if she were drowning in an abyss. Just as she was about to collapse, she suddenly remembered that before the system disappeared, it had left her a special message. The system said that if one day she regretted her decision, she could open that message. Like a madwoman, she rushed to the cabinet and immediately pulled everything out. Finally, in the bottom drawer of the cabinet, she found what the system had left for her. Opening the message, there was only one line of text. "Never gamble on a man's sincerity, you will never win. Host, if you regret it and still want to go back, there is only one last way." Chapter 9. Late at night, In.I'm Miller went up to the rooftop alone. It was already early winter, and the night wind was exceptionally cold and biting. She stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking at the bright city lights below, the shrunken cars and trees, and couldn't help but think of the system's words. To find new life out of a desperate situation. If she jumped from here, would she return to her original world or disappear completely? In.I'm Miller didn't know. The only thing she knew was that no matter where her destination was, she and Michael Sterling would never see each other again. She took her phone out of her pocket and dialed the number she knew by heart. The call was quickly connected. Michael Sterling's voice was as gentle as ever. "My Ellie, what's wrong?" She stared blankly into the distance, her voice light and airy. "Where are you now?" Michael Sterling responded in a low voice, his words full of concern for her. "I'm at the company. Are you feeling better? Did you eat properly today?" In.I'm Miller pursed her lips, her expression still faint. "I suddenly feel like eating that cheesecake from the little bakery on the outskirts of town." Before, no matter how late it was, as long as she said she wanted to eat something, even if he had already gone to bed, he would immediately go buy it and bring it to her. Once, also at night, it was snowing heavily, but he still braved the blizzard and drove for 3 whole hours to buy what she wanted. At that time, her heart ached for him. She held his cold hands in hers to warm them, thinking that she could never be with anyone else but him in this lifetime. Now, Michael Sterling on the other end of the phone paused, then replied. "My Ellie, there's a lot going on at the company today. I have to sleep at the office and can't come back. How about I buy it and bring it to you first thing tomorrow morning?" For the first time, she was so insistent. "But I want to eat it now." Michael Sterling hesitated for a moment, but still refused her. "Be good. I really can't get away right now. Tomorrow, I'll bring back as much as you want." As his words fell, a soft chuckle came from the other end of the phone. Though very light, she immediately recognized it as Vivian Summers' voice. Michael Sterling hurriedly coughed to cover it up, but on her end of the line, she laughed bitterly, tears welling up. 7 years of deep affection, she had ultimately misplaced it. She wiped away a tear, her gaze suddenly becoming firm and heartless. "No need, I don't want to eat it anymore, ever." With that, she hung up the phone directly. Her gaze drifted, looking at the dazzling, bright lights of the countless homes before her. This was not her world. Once she had also fantasized about a city of lights, with one light shining for Michael Sterling and her. But now, he had personally destroyed it all. Michael Sterling, from now on, you and I will never meet again in life or death. She slowly opened her arms. The next second, a loud bang echoed from the entire building the next day. Michael Sterling's heart suddenly throbbed violently. For some reason, he had a bad feeling. He pushed aside Vivian Summers, who was covered in hickeys beside him, and hurriedly dressed and rushed out. Behind him, Vivian Summers chased out with his wheelchair, her face tinged with jealousy. Look at you, so anxious you even forgot to pretend. I really envy Ellie. You even came up with the idea of faking a disability to get her to marry you. When will I ever be that important in your heart? Michael Sterling's thin lips pressed into a line. If it were any other time, seeing Vivian Summers jealous and coquettish, he would have long since gone to coax her. But recalling Eleanor Miller's somewhat inexplicable call last night, an inexplicable unease filled his heart. How could he have the mood to care about her feelings? He coldly took the wheelchair, got into the car, and drove directly to the bakery on the outskirts of town. After buying her favorite cheesecake, he hurriedly returned home. As he opened the door, he couldn't help but call Eleanor Miller's name. Ellie, I bought your favorite cheesecake, but he called several times and no one in the house responded. Until he pushed open the door and was stunned by the scene before him. The entire floor of the room was scattered with papers. Picking them up, he saw they were all chat logs between him and Vivian Summers, as well as explicit, intimate photos of them in bed at that moment. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Who put these here, Ellie? She knew his heart felt as if it had been brutally gouged. He frantically pulled his phone from his pocket, his whole body trembling as he found her number. But when he dialed, the phone was already off. Michael Sterling was completely panicked. He couldn't dare to imagine Eleanor Miller's reaction and the consequences after knowing these things. He dialed the already switched-off number again and again, almost frantically. Just then, a number suddenly called him. He frantically pressed the answer button, without even looking at the number clearly, and put it to his ear, his tone almost pleading. Ellie, don't leave me, I can explain. The person on the other end of the line fell silent for a moment, then spoke. Mr. Sterling, please accept our condolences. Mrs. Sterling fell from the rooftop last night and has been confirmed dead. Please come to the morgue to identify the body. Chapter 10, the man on the other end of the phone fell silent for a moment, then chuckled softly. Ellie is just upset. She put you up to tricking me, didn't she? Let me talk to her, Michael Sterling said earnestly. Ellie, are you listening? I apologize to you, but you can't use such words to deceive me, okay? Mr. Sterling, the staff member was somewhat at a loss. In his many years at the funeral home, he had seen many family members who couldn't accept the death of a loved one. But Michael Sterling's reaction was clearly beyond his ability to handle. He could only offer futile, pale comfort. You should still come in person. The location is the city morgue. Who are you? Michael Sterling didn't hear Eleanor Miller's voice, his tone becoming a bit irritable. Are you trying to scam me for money? Even if you're kidnapping her, you have to put Ellie on the phone. I need to hear her voice. Seeing that communication was impossible, the staff member could only try to soothe him. Mr. Sterling, you'll be able to see Mrs. Sterling when you get here. He hung up the phone, sighed deeply, and said to the mortician beside him, hurry up and prepare Mrs. Sterling's body. Make her presentable. We won't be able to handle him when he arrives. Where's security? Arrange for security too. Michael Sterling looked at the phone in his hand, which now emitted a dial tone, and let out an abrupt laugh. He muttered to himself, such a clumsy lie. Ellie, you're really foolish enough to use this method to trick me, aren't you? But his heart felt as if it were shrouded in a grayish-white fog. All external sounds struggled to reach his ears. He stood in place for a long time, his grip on the phone so tight it creaked. Michael Sterling murmured again, when I find you, Ellie, I will apologize to you. I'm sorry, but you can't use this kind of thing to scare me. His eyes slowly reddened, bloodshot veins crawling across them. In a daze, he walked to the entrance of a flower shop. The owner, already familiar with him, said with a smile, Mr. Sterling, buying flowers for your wife again? We got a fresh batch of the best lilies today. Do you need some? Yes, Michael Sterling said. She likes a very large bouquet. Please arrange it for me. The owner worked quickly, and in less than half an hour, a large bouquet was ready and handed to Michael Sterling. Mrs. Sterling is so fortunate. Is today a special occasion? I'm going to apologize to her. Michael Sterling's lips twitched into a stiff smile. I made her angry. Oh, I see. As long as it's not a big issue, Mrs. Sterling will surely forgive you when she sees the flowers. Take care, Mr. Sterling. He swiped his card. Perhaps he didn't see clearly, or perhaps he didn't look at the amount at all, but he paid over $10,000. The owner, hearing the transaction notification, was so shocked he chased after him a few steps, calling out, Mr. Sterling, but he had already slowly walked away. The owner couldn't catch up and could only say helplessly, just put it on his account. After all, Mr. Sterling always bought flowers for his beloved here. Michael Sterling walked for nearly a kilometer before realizing how eye-catching he was. Many people on the roadside were quietly taking out their phones to film him. Such a handsome man holding a large bouquet of flowers was truly enviable. He had forgotten to drive, and his driver was on leave. He had no choice but to hail a cab. The driver said cheerfully, "Where to? Are you going to propose?" "The city morgue," Michael Sterling whispered, dazed. "I'm going to apologize." Chapter 11, the driver's expression changed instantly, and he said awkwardly, My condolences. Don't grieve too much." Eleanor Miller wasn't dead, Michael Sterling thought, but he had no energy to explain to anyone right now, so he just smiled at the driver. There was a traffic jam on the way. He looked at the clear, cloudless sky and called Eleanor Miller again. He wanted to hear her rebukes and angry curses. Even if Eleanor Miller slapped him or demanded a divorce, Michael Sterling wasn't afraid. He would spend the rest of his life repenting, telling her he truly knew he was wrong. Ellie was so soft-hearted. One day, he would win her back. She could never bear to see Michael Sterling hurt. 1,000 ways to win her back flashed through his mind. Suddenly, a glimmer of ambitious hope arose. The lilies in his hand exuded a faint, fresh fragrance. Michael Sterling thought there would be a way. Eleanor Miller wouldn't leave him. The city funeral home was large, emitting a hot, strange odor from the operating boilers. He got out of the car, a trace of heartache flashing in his eyes. Eleanor Miller loved cleanliness. Michael Sterling always remembered these little things. He had done wrong, yet it caused Eleanor Miller to have to stay here. Who exactly was this a punishment for? "Fool," he said softly, "you didn't even pick a more comfortable place or a more believable trick." Eleanor Miller was undoubtedly beautiful. How could she bear to jump off a building? After painstakingly refuting all those pointless speculations in his mind, Michael Sterling finally urged his uncooperative feet to move forward. He saw the staff member in black pants and a black shirt, a look of some distress on his face, complaining to the person beside him, "I really wish all suicidal people wouldn't choose to jump. It's really too difficult to handle." All the bones in her body were shattered, and there was such a large hole in the back of her head, her brain matter almost completely spilled out. Yes, Michael Sterling thought silently, utterly helpless. Such a horrifying way to die, Eleanor Miller could even make it up to scare him. Only one suicide by jumping has been brought in these past 2 days, right? What was her name again? It's that very rich Michael Sterling's wife, named Eleanor Miller, I think. So rich and still committing suicide. I don't get it. Michael Sterling stared blankly at them. After a moment, he reacted, almost about to laugh. Eleanor Miller had actually colluded with the staff to deceive him. But could they please stop talking? Michael Sterling thought. He was really scared now, very scared. If this was a trick Eleanor Miller had come up with to punish him, then Eleanor Miller had succeeded. "Mr. Sterling," the somewhat familiar staff member ran over, panting, and stopped in front of him. "Please come with me." "Where's Ellie?" he said lightly, as if his feet were treading on clouds, unable to find solid ground. "I want to see her. I brought her a lot of flowers. She'll like them." "Okay, I'll take you to see her." A hint of pity appeared on the staff member's face. "This way." Michael Sterling followed him into the interior of the funeral home. His ears were filled with the buzzing of machinery and occasional crackling sounds. For the first time, he felt a little curious. "What's that sound?" The staff member was used to it and didn't react at first. After a long moment, he said, "Oh, you mean this. It's the sound of the crematorium furnace." "Thank you," Michael Sterling replied. He felt colder and colder, his body seemingly about to freeze. The staff member exhaled a bit of white mist from his mouth and nose, and said apologetically, "The cold storage can only be this temperature in summer, otherwise the bodies will spoil. Please understand." "What body?" Michael Sterling said softly. "I don't want to see a body, I want to see Ellie." Chapter 12, Okay, please come this way. Michael Sterling finally saw her. Eleanor Miller lay on a narrow bed, her face very pale but very peaceful. She looked as if she were sleeping soundly. Neither the footsteps of the morticians walking back and forth, nor the humming of the cold storage machinery seemed to affect her in the slightest. Michael Sterling looked at her quietly, then said, "Ellie?" She didn't respond. He seemed somewhat puzzled, frowned, and called out again, "Ellie, stop fooling around. I know I was wrong, but this isn't auspicious, is it? Don't punish me like this." His voice was so soft, as if afraid of disturbing someone's dream. The staff member, unable to bear it, took a step back and said quietly, "Mr. Sterling, the police have already investigated. We couldn't reach you on the phone yesterday. Mrs. Sterling committed suicide by jumping from the rooftop. There's complete surveillance footage from the top floor, which has ruled out the possibility of homicide. Please accept our condolences." Michael Sterling turned a deaf ear. He gently placed the flowers aside, knelt by the short, narrow bed and pleaded, "Ellie, wake up please, don't scare me. I really know I was wrong." "Ellie," tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes, dripping onto the woman's heavily powdered cheek, "open your eyes and look at me." His trembling hand reached out to touch her cold, lifeless cheek, his expression so vacant it was as if he couldn't comprehend the current situation, calling Eleanor Miller's name again and again. The staff member's heart ached, and he could only retreat with the mortician. They discussed in low voices, "They all say Mr. Sterling dotes on his wife. It seems to be true." "Yeah, he still can't accept that his wife is dead. Why would she jump when things were going so well?" "How would I know? If I had such a husband and family background, I wouldn't bear to die." The calls didn't stop until his voice was dry and hoarse, his throat bleeding. Michael Sterling still knelt on the cold floor, softly calling her name. When only a breathy sound could escape, he quietly looked at the corpse, the tear stains on his face already dry. "You lied to me," he said softly. "Ellie, how could you bear to leave me?" A very light, very gentle kiss landed on her lips. He tasted the salty bitterness of his own tears and stood up dizzy. The staff member walked in again and said tactfully, "Mr. Sterling, what do you plan to do?" "I will cover the expenses." His voice was so hoarse it was almost inaudible. "I'll send a car later to take her away." "Okay, Mr. Sterling, our deepest sympathies." Why was everyone telling him to offer his sympathies? Michael Sterling thought. His Ellie was just throwing a tantrum. He would take her back and coax her gently, slowly. One day, Eleanor Miller would soften and forgive him. The mortician had already prepared the body. Covered with a white sheet and placed in the car, she looked no different from an ordinary person. Michael Sterling sat by the bed, holding her hand, and said softly, "Ellie, I'm taking you home. Whether you're angry or upset, just don't leave me, okay?" Chapter 13, the news of Eleanor Miller's fatal fall spread nearly a week later. Because during this period, Michael Sterling had acted too much like a normal person. He still went to the company on time to handle business, still attended countless cocktail parties and banquets. It was just that when others asked about Eleanor Miller, he would always smile somewhat helplessly and say, "I did something wrong, and she's upset with me." People understood and would often joke with him. After a couple of drinks, he would raise his wrist to check his watch and reply politely and apologetically, "I should go home. You know, an angry wife is even less tolerant of a late husband. Get your wife to come around soon," they would say with a kind smile. "It's been a long time since we saw your wife." So when the news broke, everyone was shocked. "A week ago, I'm not mistaken, am I? Michael Sterling told me just yesterday he was going home to be with his wife." "What?" I even saw him looking down at his phone during a break, messaging his wife, smiling so sweetly. It couldn't have been an act, right? How do you know if the wife he's talking about is the one at home? Don't be so malicious with your assumptions. I don't think Michael Sterling is the type to have a mistress. Amidst all the discussions, Michael Sterling seemed completely unconcerned. It was already dark when he arrived home, and he sighed helplessly. He was late home. Eleanor Miller would be upset with him again. But the smile on his lips was sweet. Just as he pressed his fingerprint on the lock, someone hugged his waist from behind, their cheek pressed against his back, saying pitifully, "Michael, why didn't you come find me?" Michael Sterling's heart lurched. He instinctively pushed her away forcefully, saying coldly, "Who let you come here?" "Michael," Vivian Summers bit her lip, tears welling in her eyes. "I know you're very sad right now. Can't I come and keep you company?" "Get out," Michael Sterling roared. "Are you trying to make me fail at the last hurdle?" "Vivian Summers, if Ellie gets even angrier with me, I will absolutely not forgive you. Get out." "Michael," Vivian Summers screamed as he pushed her, causing her to fall down the steps. Tears streamed down her face as she choked out, "No one wanted Ellie to leave like this. Please don't be like this. Let me accompany you in her place, okay?" His only answer was a sudden chilling look from Michael Sterling. She saw Michael Sterling lean down, inch by inch, as if to kiss her, but the coldness in his eyes sent a shiver down her spine. Then, a hand clamped around her neck, forcibly lifting her from the ground. Vivian Summers had always known Michael Sterling was strong. Now, this strength became a deadly curse. She was choked until her face turned red and purple, struggling to breathe, writhing in pain. "Get out," Michael Sterling said softly. "If I see you again, I'll kill you." She was thrown heavily to the ground, screaming in pain. Michael Sterling didn't even glance at her, turned, and went into the house, leaving Vivian Summers with a look of utter disbelief. When she learned of Eleanor Miller's death, her companions had laughed, saying she finally had a chance to rise. Some even messaged Vivian Summers, asking if the wife, Michael Sterling, rushed home to every day before dark was her. Vivian Summers, of course, hadn't been with Michael Sterling. Consequently, terrified that he had found someone new, she immediately went to his house. Whether intentionally or not, Michael Sterling had forgotten to close the door when he entered. She looked at the pitch-black living room, a trace of resentful anger rising in her heart. Could Michael Sterling really have found someone new so quickly? And he used to act so in love with Eleanor Miller. She unwillingly got up, her high heels clattering on the steps as she followed him into the house. Chapter 14, the house was pitch black, and the air conditioning was set extremely low, like entering an ice cave. Vivian Summers had come to find Michael Sterling today, naturally dressed to impress, wearing something light and pretty. Now, goosebumps covered her bare shoulders and arms. She cautiously walked in, calling Michael Sterling's name in a low voice, but there was no response. In the huge villa, the few maids who used to serve Eleanor Miller were gone, leaving only the empty sound of footsteps. She heard very faint footsteps, subconsciously looked up, and saw Michael Sterling walking in one direction without looking back, his movements quick. "Michael," Vivian Summers called out, but he didn't stop. She had no choice but to hurry after him. She always felt that this villa was abnormally cold and could only console herself that the air conditioning was set too low. Rubbing her arms and cheeks, she found the room at the deepest part of the villa. It was the master bedroom where Michael Sterling and Eleanor Miller lived together. Vivian Summers had been here a few times. She knew they would be intimate here. She had also glared fiercely at the door panel, wishing Eleanor Miller would die immediately. But now that she was truly dead, she hesitated. Michael Sterling wouldn't know it was her meddling that caused Eleanor Miller to jump to her death in anger, would he? She nervously bit her nails, then heard someone muttering something in the room. She jumped, quickly holding her breath and pressing her ear to the door to listen. It was Michael Sterling's voice. His tone was incredibly gentle, softly and intermittently saying something. Vivian Summers couldn't hear clearly, occasionally catching fragmented words. Words like Ellie, wife, I love you. Her heart trembled, her eyes widening in disbelief. Could it be that Eleanor Miller wasn't dead? Was the news fake? So her jumping off the building was just a stunt to attract attention, merely a way to compete with her for Michael Sterling's affection. Once she figured this out, she snorted coldly through her nose and pouted, about to knock on the door. Since she could drive Eleanor Miller to a breakdown once, she could do it a second time. But Vivian Summers didn't expect the door to be unlocked. Her movement was a bit too large, and her high heels tilted forward. She stumbled, crashing through the door and kneeling on the ground. She cried out ouch in pain, looked up at Michael Sterling in the room, and met a pair of emotionless eyes. Michael Sterling looked at her as if she were something dirty. Vivian Summers shrank back, subconsciously averting her gaze to the person beside Michael Sterling. She saw Eleanor Miller lying on the bed, her body straight and stiff, somewhat strange. So she stood up and said sweetly, "Ellie, long time no see." Eleanor Miller didn't reply. Vivian Summers took a step forward, wanting to drape herself over Michael Sterling's shoulder and act coquettishly as usual. But as she got closer, she noticed something was wrong. Eleanor Miller, lying on the bed, had her eyes closed. A garish red lipstick was smeared on her lips, gently applied by Michael Sterling. Besides that, her face was covered with a thick layer of powder, but it couldn't hide the underlying bluish-white pallor. This was a corpse, undoubtedly. Chapter 15, Vivian Summers's hand trembled violently. She took a step back, her throat feeling as if it were tightly constricted, unable to make any sound. She wanted to scream, to run away. She finally understood the faint, strange smell she had noticed upon entering the villa and the reason for the extremely low air conditioning. But Michael Sterling just looked at her, his expression as calm as stagnant water. "Vivian Summers," he said softly, "you were the one who told her about those chat logs, weren't you?" Vivian Summers was speechless, her back pressed against the wall, shaking her head desperately, tears already streaming down her face. After a long standoff, she finally gasped, her words broken. "You're crazy. Eleanor Miller is already dead. What on earth are you doing?" Michael Sterling's expression changed instantly. He stood up and walked towards Vivian Summers, step by step. "She's dead," Michael Sterling said coldly. "Whose fault is that? Vivian Summers, tell me, was it you?" Vivian Summers wanted to run, but her legs were too weak to stand. The shock of seeing a corpse for the first time was greater than she had imagined. She sobbed, "It wasn't me. It really wasn't me, Michael. I was wrong. I wouldn't dare provoke you. Please take Eleanor Miller and bury her. I beg you, she's really dead." "How could I do that?" Michael Sterling had stopped in front of her, leaning down to whisper in her ear, just as they had done countless times while tumbling in bed, "Vivian Summers, I am at fault, and you are at fault. Neither of us should think we can get away with it so easily." He actually let out a soft chuckle. Vivian Summers was so scared she knelt on the floor, trembling as she looked at him. "What are you going to do?" Michael Sterling didn't answer. When he walked out of the room, he was still clutching a handful of Vivian Summers's long hair. She had struggled too much, and Michael Sterling had finally managed to control her. Now he was slowly washing his hands. The strands of hair fell into the white ceramic basin, flowing with the water into the drain, tangling around the metal stopper. "So dirty," Michael Sterling murmured. If Ellie saw this, she would be angry. Vivian Summers's disappearance had no impact on the outside world. She was, after all, a clinging vine who had come to the city staking everything, only to end up depending on Michael Sterling for survival. By the time people noticed something was wrong with Michael Sterling, a month had passed. Why haven't we heard about Michael Sterling holding a funeral for Eleanor Miller yet? Has she already been buried? Buried. He was still saying yesterday he was going to bring food home for Eleanor Miller. Honestly, at first, I thought it was sweet, but now it's a bit creepy. Their conversation abruptly stopped because the person at the center of their discussion was walking towards them, holding his phone. "You don't like to eat this." He raised his eyebrows slightly, a surprised expression on his face, then smiled. "But I've already brought it back. What should I do?" Okay, I'll take care of it myself." His tone was very indulgent, with a hint of helplessness, looking extremely cheerful. The two exchanged a glance and boldly stepped forward to speak. "Mr. Sterling, who are you talking to on the phone?" "My wife, of course." Michael Sterling smiled and shook his head. "She said she liked this flavor before, but now she doesn't like it anymore." "Very mischievous." "Haha, it seems you have sweet troubles." Michael Sterling smiled, nodded, and left. After he walked away, the two looked at each other, a chilling sensation rising in both of them. Chapter 16, I'm home. Even if no one responded, Michael Sterling would say this the moment he took off his shoes. Only, in the past, Eleanor Miller would have come out to greet him at this time, taken his coat, and given him a smiling kiss. Michael Sterling should have been used to life without her by now, yet at this moment, he felt a bit lonely. He put down the bag of pastries, but his gaze fell on the center of the living room. A woman was kneeling there, arranging the radiant lilies on the coffee table. Her long dress was snow-white and delicate, very familiar. She gave a somewhat shy smile. "Michael." In that instant, Michael Sterling thought he saw Eleanor Miller from when they had just married. His Adam's apple bobbed. He subconsciously took a step forward, but noticed the woman flinch, the iron chain around her ankle clanking with the movement. His movement paused. The woman's face instantly turned pale with fright, and she threw herself at his feet. Michael Sterling leaned down, his fingers gripping her cheek, a muscle twitching unconsciously at his temple. Rage contorted his face, but his voice was very soft. "How dare you," he said, word by word, through gritted teeth. "How dare you wear her clothes? Are you even worthy of being compared to her?" Vivian Summers was slapped so hard she hit the corner of the coffee table. The porcelain vase holding the lilies fell to the floor, shattering with a clear, crisp sound. She flinched violently. Ignoring her dizziness, she hugged Michael Sterling's leg, crying out pleadingly, "Michael, I beg you, let me replace her, please." "Get lost," Michael Sterling flung her away, almost roaring, "You're worthy? What kind of trash are you? Give me back her clothes, give them back to me," Vivian Summers screamed, then tremblingly took off the long dress. Naked, she huddled by the sofa, crying, "Michael, I really know I was wrong, I really know." "I let you stay here to accompany Ellie," Michael Sterling said. "What are you doing?" Vivian Summers sobbed and shook her head. She was about to be driven mad by the torment. Michael Sterling gave her food and water every day and didn't abuse her. But on the days he went out, Vivian Summers would be locked in the room with that cold corpse. For so many days, Eleanor Miller had been moved from the room with the air conditioning at its lowest to an ice chest that closely resembles a coffin. Every day and night, she was terrified by every rustle of wind and blade of grass in the villa. She couldn't sleep, her eyes were bloodshot, and she was on the verge of collapse. She was constantly afraid that Eleanor Miller would climb out of the ice chest and look at her, saying, "You ruined me." Seeing her so terrified, Michael Sterling said softly, "Vivian Summers, Ellie saw you trying to seduce me today." She screamed in terror, unable to bear this intimidation any longer. Her eyes rolled back, and she was about to faint, but Michael Sterling grabbed her hair harshly and laughed. "You don't even know how to resist this much, Vivian Summers. You deserve it." Something seemed to flash in Vivian Summers's eyes, but it was still masked by tears. She pleaded, "Michael, just let me go, please let me go." "Who will let me go?" As if bored, Michael Sterling muttered, turned to leave, but Vivian Summers suddenly pulled him. A shard of broken porcelain slashed across Michael Sterling's throat, and blood instantly gushed out. Chapter 17. "It's okay now," Leo Paxton, a friend of Michael Sterling, patted his shoulder. "That Vivian Summers has been locked up," he sighed. "This period has been hard on you too." He quietly shook his head. He couldn't speak for the time being, his neck wrapped in thick gauze, looking utterly exhausted, dazed, and harmless. Leo Paxton looked at his old friend in this state, his heart also feeling somewhat sour. He advised, "I know you love your wife very much, but the dead can't be brought back. Don't be too obsessed. She definitely wouldn't want to see you like this." "I will bury her," Michael Sterling typed. "I just can't bear to part with her too much," Leo Paxton sighed and patted his shoulder again. "I'll have my friend try to get Vivian Summers a life sentence. You try to move on sooner, okay?" Michael Sterling nodded. Leo Paxton was still busy dealing with these matters, so after a few more words of advice, he left. When the hospital room was completely quiet again, Michael Sterling turned his head and quietly looked out the window. The trees outside the window had already turned yellow, their leaves occasionally drifting into the room. Even though he had accomplished one thing, Michael Sterling's heart felt empty, unable to find solid ground. It had been a whole month since Eleanor Miller left. He was always unwilling to bury her, simply because he always felt there was a possibility of a miracle happening someday. But even though he dreamed of Eleanor Miller every night and looked at her pale corpse every day, she showed no sign of coming back to life. He gently closed his eyes. The throbbing pain that occasionally resurfaced prevented him from sleeping peacefully even in his shallow dreams. Eleanor Miller was dead. Everyone was telling him Eleanor Miller was dead, but Michael Sterling still refused to believe it. He saw Eleanor Miller's back in the bustling street. She was laughing happily and talking to a girl beside her, looking very cheerful. Michael Sterling wanted to call her name, to ask her to wait for him, but his feet felt as if they were encased in concrete-reinforced steel, unable to move a single step. He watched them walk away, then heard the girl say, "A great disaster survived will bring future blessings. But Ning Ning, ever since you woke up, I feel like you've become a different person." Alina Miller's smile faded slightly. Then she said, "Maybe it's because I figured out a lot of things at the brink of life and death. You're not even chasing after the boy you used to like anymore?" Alina Miller shook her head. The two gradually walked further away, leaving Michael Sterling in a cold sweat, somewhat bewildered by the situation. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "Host, I told you you'd regret it." "Yes," Alina Miller said faintly. "I shouldn't have overestimated anyone. Fortunately, there's still a chance to return, but it comes with conditions and a price. Can you accept that?" "Of course." Michael Sterling woke up abruptly. The autumn sky outside the window was clear and crisp. He sat up, feeling as if he suddenly understood something. On his way, he saw many nurses and doctors and various patients. With every step, he saw everything around him dissipate into specks of light until he stood on the rooftop. The hospital's railing wasn't easy to climb. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing his scarred arms. He had thought about death many times, but he never thought that on that day, this death could allow him to see Alina Miller again. "Is what you said true?" He thought this in his mind, but no one responded. The wind was so strong, he swayed precariously, not knowing if what had just appeared in his mind was an illusion or real. If it was real, he could see Alina Miller again. If it was fake, he would die if he jumped. But Michael Sterling didn't hesitate. He closed his eyes and fell backward. Chapter 18, "Come on, Ning Ning," Grace Goodwin pleaded, hugging her arm pitifully. "Can't you just come with me?" "I still have classes." Alina Miller smiled helplessly. "Can you pick another time?" "Okay, as long as you're willing to promise me, any time is fine," Grace Goodwin immediately beamed. "I love you," she skipped away, letting go of Alina's arm. Alina Miller sighed, feeling a bit helpless with her childhood friend. It had been 3 months since she returned to her own world. Alina Miller had previously died in a car accident and was thus sent to another world for a mission. After waking up, she found that the system had minimized her physical injuries to just a mild concussion. So after a few days in the hospital, she returned to her 22-year-old self, healthy and vibrant. Seeing her fully recovered, Grace Goodwin pestered her to go to a mixer to find a partner. But Alina Miller, having just ended an extremely failed relationship, how could she have the mind for any mixer? But since her good friend insisted, she reluctantly went. Grace Goodwin appeared at the dormitory entrance at the agreed time. Alina Miller quickly tidied herself up and was about to leave when Grace Goodwin let out a shriek, took out lipstick, and was about to apply it to her lips. "I know you're beautiful, but isn't going completely bare-faced a bit much?" "I'm not looking for a partner," Alina Miller said, both amused and exasperated. "All right, let's go." "Okay." The two of them walked hand in hand to the agreed-upon karaoke bar. Alina Miller wasn't interested in this kind of childish activity at all, but couldn't resist Grace Goodwin's insistence. The moment she pushed open the private room door, she awkwardly hid behind Grace Goodwin, sneaking in. Soon, she saw a familiar person in the crowd, froze for a moment, then averted her eyes. "Why is Lucas Shepard here too?" Grace Goodwin whispered in her ear. "Do you still like him? If you like him, go for it." In fact, the former Alina Miller hadn't had a particularly strong liking for him, just curiosity. Now, when she thought back to those naive and sweet secret crush emotions, it felt like a lifetime ago. Naturally, she shook her head. "You really changed after that car accident," Grace Goodwin pouted. "All right then, shall we sing together later?" "No," Alina Miller immediately refused. She awkwardly just picked at the fruit on the table, keeping her head down the entire time, until Grace Goodwin, who was having a blast, sidled up to her. "Have you noticed Lucas Shepard looking at you?" "I don't think so," Alina Miller subconsciously retorted, but then unconsciously looked in that direction. Sure enough, Lucas Shepard was staring at her intently. She froze. The other person immediately curled his lips slightly, smiled at her, and pointed to his phone. Alina Miller looked down and saw that he had sent her a message. "Feeling better?" Scrolling up revealed her chat history with Lucas Shepard, or more accurately, Alina Miller's solo enthusiastic messages, to which Lucas Shepard always replied briefly and coldly. "Much better," she sipped her sparkling wine. "Thanks for asking. I want to come over, sit next to you. Is that okay?" This time, Alina Miller truly stared blankly. The Lucas Shepard of the past barely bothered with her. What was going on now? Chapter 19. Ultimately, she refused. The private room was incredibly noisy. After 2 drinks, In.I'm wanted to go out for some fresh air. She quietly slipped out and stood in the corridor, listlessly looking at her phone, thinking about the lab report due tomorrow. Suddenly, someone stood beside her. In.I'm, Lucas Shepard's voice was low and magnetic. Are you not feeling well? No, In.I'm was somewhat surprised. Why are you here? Lucas Shepard was a very popular person. He never lacked girlfriends he could get with a snap of his fingers. In.I'm was quite curious why he would come to this kind of matchmaking mixer. It's too noisy, Lucas Shepard said. I still prefer places with fewer people. This was quite similar to In.I'm. Having had a little to drink, her words were less guarded. Then, why did you come? Are you lacking a girlfriend? Yes, Lucas Shepard answered straightforwardly. I came for you. He took a flower out of his pocket. It was small, swaying in the night breeze, and he handed it to In.I'm. In.I'm looked down at it and suddenly chuckled. What is this? Someone said you like lilies, Lucas Shepard said. I went to over a dozen flower shops and couldn't find any. They were all pre-ordered. This was all I could get for you. If you had given me lilies, I wouldn't have wanted them, In.I'm said, resting her cheek on her hand, her tone light. From now on, I don't like lilies anymore. Lucas Shepard responded in his mind. See, wasn't I right? The system remained silent for a long time. Where on earth did you get this database? How can it be both accurate and inaccurate? Lucas Shepard said, somewhat dissatisfied. Should I even listen to you anymore? What if Ellie gets scared off? I'm sorry, the system replied after a long pause. I'll do my best to provide you with more accurate information. What was your name again? Michael, the system said. My former name was Michael Sterling. When Michael Sterling woke up, he found he had become the host for a mission taker. He could indeed see In.I'm through the young man's eyes, but he could only be a system that taught Lucas Shepard how to love In.I'm. He no longer had a body, no ability to move freely. The only thing he had was his years of experience with In.I'm. He knew what she liked to eat, what she liked to watch, what kind of flowers she liked, what kind of person. But he could never personally say anything to In.I'm again. Lucas Shepard walked In.I'm back to her university and smiled at her. I'll make sure they send Grace Goodwin back. You get some rest. Okay, In.I'm nodded. Thanks for your trouble today, Lucas Shepard smiled. No problem. On the way back, he was still talking to the system. He said, it's a good thing you have this system, otherwise I might regret it for the rest of my life. As long as I win Ellie over, she won't die, right? Yes, for some reason, he sensed a hint of loneliness in the system's tone. Host, please work hard on the mission to prevent the target's death. Recommend a few more books she likes tonight, Lucas Shepard said. I want to understand her better. Understood, host. Chapter 20. In.I'm noticed that Lucas Shepard seemed to be pursuing her. She had indeed harbored good feelings for this boy before. To others, this was just a few days ago, but for In.I'm, these were feelings from many, many years ago. She looked at the messages from the boy on her phone, silently turned off the screen. Grace Goodwin beside her immediately exclaimed, Don't you like him? Why are you ignoring him now? I can't like anyone else right now, In.I'm said softly. I don't want to take the risk. In.I'm was scared. She was afraid of offering her sincere heart again, only to have it trampled underfoot, bloody and unsightly. This wasn't a mission world. She didn't have a mission that would result in death if uncompleted. Risking everything to pursue an ethereal love was not in In.'s nature. Grace Goodwin didn't know what had happened to her, but she stopped upon hearing these words. She stared blankly at In.' for a while, then suddenly hugged her. You have to be okay, Grace Goodwin said. If you don't like him, then don't like him. I'll reject him for you. In.' nodded. So Grace Goodwin called Lucas Shepard and told him that In.' wasn't in a good state right now, so he shouldn't ask her out anymore. Her tone was like a mother hen protecting her chick. In.' listened beside her, laughing. The boy remained silent for a long time before softly saying, Okay. Before Grace Goodwin hung up, he added, I'll still wait for her. Please tell her not to feel pressured. If she ever wants to hang out, I'll accompany her anywhere she wants to go. Grace Goodwin rubbed her arms, shivering. She said to In.' He's so cheesy. Lucas Shepard confirmed that the former In.' liked him. so he kept the pursuit phase very short. But after a car accident, Miller's attitude took a 180-degree turn. He couldn't say he was resentful, just frustrated, and felt that his former self, who enjoyed playing hard to get and watching Miller chase after him, was rather pathetic. The system remained silent. Lucas Shepard frowned, feeling irritable. Can a car accident change a person that much? He ran a hand through his hair. Why is the current Ellie completely different from before? He didn't know how sad the system hiding in his heart was at this moment. It was he who had turned Miller into this. When they first got together, Miller was sunny, lively, like a tender blade of wild grass, growing lushly. Michael Sterling thought, perhaps this was fate's way of making him witness the consequences of his own sins. He hesitated whether to tell Lucas Shepard about those things, but the young man quickly pulled himself together. He wasn't afraid of Miller's coldness, but more worried about why her current state was so conflicted. Since Miller didn't want to see him, then so be it. He called a delivery service to send Miller a book. It wasn't some grandiloquent content, but a very cheerful and light-hearted children's reader. Michael Sterling froze for a moment, saying she didn't like to read those. Whether she likes it or not doesn't matter, Lucas Shepard shrugged. She's been very tired lately. I just want her to be a little happier. His goal wasn't to increase Miller's favorability, just to make her happy. Michael Sterling's heart ached. He finally understood the difference between himself and the other. Chapter 21, when Miller received the book, she didn't, as Michael Sterling had predicted, choose to return it directly. She spent a week slowly finishing it and then proactively sent Lucas Shepard a message. Why this book? Because I loved reading it when I was a child, Lucas Shepard replied, a smile on his lips. What do you think? Childish. Miller only replied with these two words, but he smiled even more happily, as if it weren't a criticism but a compliment. Michael Sterling, however, knew that Miller wouldn't engage in such a pointless conversation with someone she had no feelings for. Clearly, Lucas Shepard had done the right thing. The two chatted back and forth like this for a few days, and Michael Sterling gradually began to feel somewhat lost. After several years of marriage, he thought he understood Miller, but seeing her interact with Lucas Shepard, he realized that Miller also had such a side to her. Her academic performance was excellent, and she never replied to Lucas Shepard's messages during her major courses. Once, Lucas Shepard went to her classroom to attend an open lecture with her, but the two just sat one behind the other, without a single word of exchange throughout. He asked Lucas Shepard, "Don't you think this is a pointless effort?" "Not at all," Lucas Shepard replied. "I feel very happy just being able to accompany her." It was this seemingly selfless behavior that demonstrably increased Miller's affection. Lucas Shepard never asked Michael Sterling about his current mission progress. Occasionally, when he learned the numbers, he didn't show much excitement. He always said he liked Miller, not just because of this mission. Perhaps this was heaven's punishment for him, Michael Sterling thought. As long as the mission remained uncompleted, he would have to watch Miller gradually let down her guard with Lucas Shepard. They were young, beautiful, brimming with vibrant love and hope, completely different from him. Perhaps in their later interactions, Miller had genuinely fallen in love with Michael Sterling. But he knew that Miller had approached him with a purpose initially, and he too had used such dirty means to make her stay. Deceit and concealment were the foundation of their love, now blurred beyond recognition. He thought that by becoming a so-called system, his heart would no longer feel that strange, dull ache. He had come to this world merely to see Miller one more time, but now this act was like drinking poison to quench thirst. One more look, one more thought, but it also meant that Lucas Shepard and her were taking another step closer. Like this bright spring night. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Without grand pursuits or confessions, two hearts had drawn much closer. Lucas Shepard checked the weather forecast and sent a text. "Want to go on a spring outing with me?" "Okay." Miller still said very little on social media, but when they met, she would give Lucas Shepard a very faint smile. It had been 2 weeks since their last meeting. Lucas Shepard asked her, "Finished with your project?" "Finished," Miller sighed in relief. "Next, I'll prepare my graduation thesis." Michael Sterling couldn't help but say to Lucas Shepard, You won't be able to see her after graduation. Aren't you going to step it up? It's okay, Lucas Shepard said. Transportation is so advanced now, I can go find her anytime. Young people are so naive. Distance is the widest obstacle in front of love. Michael Sterling thought, yet couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Chapter 22, In.I'm Miller didn't know that Lucas Shepard's heart housed a person she had once loved. They strolled along the small path by the river, the mountains and fields blooming with flowers. Lucas, she finally smiled after a long while, why did you always ignore me before? Lucas Shepard froze. He had thought In.I'm Miller would ask this question sooner or later, but he still couldn't help feeling embarrassed now. At that time, many classmates said you were very beautiful, he said softly. Good grades, but very aloof. When you took the initiative to talk to me, I was very happy. But I was afraid I wasn't the person you thought I was, that one day you'd get to know the real me and find me boring. He rarely opened up like this, his cheeks flushing slightly. In.I'm Miller turned her head to look at him, then, after a moment, chuckled. All right then I forgive you. It turned out she wasn't always indifferent to this matter. Now that it was out in the open, she seemed much more relaxed. Lucas Shepard walked beside her, even his breathing lightened. What about you? He said seriously. Why did you suddenly decide to talk to me? Someone who likes to read about chipmunks can't be a bad person, In.I'm Miller smiled and said. That day, Grace told me you specifically found a girl to share a cab to take her back to university. I knew then that you definitely weren't maliciously stringing me along. Such a simple conversation, Michael Sterling thought. How long had it been since he had such a quiet chat with In.I'm Miller? Their interactions were filled with countless entangling desires. Money, fame, endless social scenes. But in reality, the real In.I'm Miller was just a young woman about to step into society. I remember your family background is also quite good, he said to Lucas Shepard. Won't your family require you to marry someone of equal social standing? If there's any disparity, it's Ellie who would find me lacking, Lucas Shepard said absently. I barely scraped into this university. Ellie's IQ is probably several levels higher than mine. So, such pure thoughts and relationships could exist in the world. Perhaps the abnormal one was himself. He had lived in a world of extravagance for too long, and had long forgotten what it was like to communicate peacefully, face to face with someone. In.I'm Miller would notice Lucas Shepard occasionally spacing out. She had experienced this before, when she was conversing with the system in the mission world, unable to focus on the scene before her. Could it be that Lucas Shepard was also just doing a mission now? Her long lashes trembled. She tilted her head up to look at the petals on the treetops, feeling very confused. If she were to be hurt again after giving her heart, would she choose this path? The answer was perhaps yes, because In.I'm Miller felt that Lucas Shepard wasn't that kind of person. For the latter half of the journey, their thoughts diverged, but their expressions remained calm. They encountered a few photographers carrying cameras. Someone smiled and said, "Let us take a picture of you, no charge." Lucas Shepard looked at her questioningly. "Do you want to take one?" In.I'm Miller smiled. "Okay." So they stood side by side, very proper. The photographer instructed them to be a bit more intimate, to get closer. Lucas Shepard's hand hovered over her shoulder a few times, his face slightly red. Finally, he put his arm around In.I'm Miller's shoulder. With a click, they finally had a photo together. The photographer smiled. "Such a perfect match, bless you." Lucas Shepard subconsciously said thank you, then looked at In.I'm Miller nervously for a long time, but saw no hint of aversion in her expression. Chapter 23, The way down the mountain was not easy. Lucas Shepard offered her his hand several times, and In.I'm Miller obediently took it each time. He was visibly overjoyed, his handsome face looking even brighter. He smiled, "So good to me today. Am I usually bad to you?" In.I'm Miller pouted. "I've never been mean to you." Lucas Shepard just smiled without answering, but his heart was in turmoil, constantly calling out to Michael Sterling. "I think she's accepted me." The favorability progress was at 60%. It couldn't be called love, but there was definitely something there. Michael Sterling should have been happy for him, but at this moment, he could only remain silent. After a long pause, he let out a soft laugh. "Congratulations, host." On the way back to In.I'm Miller's dormitory, Lucas Shepard said to her, "It's your birthday the week after next, right?" In.I'm Miller smiled at him. What gift are you going to give me? It's not another children's picture book, is it? No, Lucas Shepard looked at her, his eyes bright. When the time comes, I want to say a few words to you. He wanted to confess. In.I'm Miller quickly understood, smiled, and nodded. But I have to go out with my advisor next week for a competition. Wait for me to come back. Okay. After they said goodbye, In.I'm Miller returned to her dorm. Grace Goodwin was sitting at the door, blocking her way, and raised her chin. Fess up, what stage are you at? What stage? In.I'm Miller played dumb, trying to go inside. Grace Goodwin grabbed her waist. All right, I'll talk. On my birthday, he'll probably confess officially. A grin spread across Grace Goodwin's face. A while ago you said you didn't like him, weren't in the mood. You, In.I'm Miller, you tricked me? No. In.I'm Miller lowered her eyes and smiled. Lucas Shepard is really nice. Regardless of whether she had moved on from the shadow left by the mission world, In.I'm Miller still often dreamed of it all at night. She stood on the rooftop, looking at the ant-like stream of vehicles below, feeling lost. It was Lucas Shepard who told her that she was now standing on the ground, not the rooftop. He was her first stable anchor in this world, followed by Grace Goodwin. Grace Goodwin just coquettishly clutched her arm, swaying it back and forth, relentlessly begging In.I'm Miller for a live update. Unable to resist, In.I'm pulled a photo paper from her small bag. Who took this? Grace Goodwin gasped. Oh my God, you guys look so good together. Indeed, the two standing under the flowering tree looked like a perfect couple, talented and beautiful, smiling and chatting. The candid shot captured their smiles without any stiffness. It looked like it could be submitted to some magazine's. In.I'm Miller took back the photo, looked down at it, and smiled. A passerby. This atmosphere, it looks like you're already dating. Is there only one photo? What about Lucas Shepard? He can print it himself, silly. The dormitory was in a playful uproar. In.I'm Miller laughed along, feeling unprecedentedly lighthearted. Even the upcoming competition didn't seem so daunting. Ever since Lucas Shepard came into her life, Michael Sterling rarely appeared in her dreams. This was the most delightful thing for In.I'm Miller. Chapter 24, when In.I'm Miller went to the competition, Lucas Shepard saw her off. They talked for a while through the bus window. After he left, her advisor said with a smile, "Boyfriend?" "Not yet," In.I'm Miller laughed. "You're so gossipy too. You've been single for 4 years. What's wrong with a little gossip?" The advisor had a good relationship with them and would joke along. "If you get married in the future, remember to invite me to the wedding." Of course. They took a 2-hour high-speed train, then boarded a shuttle bus. After the group arrived at the hotel, they started assigning tasks, moving quickly. In.I'm Miller was preoccupied with her competition entry, opening her laptop to proofread it several times. It wasn't until evening that she noticed Lucas Shepard had sent her a text message. "Heard there's a massive rainstorm over there. Did it affect you?" The hotel's soundproofing was too good. In.I'm Miller hadn't even noticed. She drew back the curtains. Outside, a fierce wind and rain lashed against the window. "Are you busy?" Lucas Shepard sent another message a few hours later, strictly adhering to the no-clinging rule she had set before she left. In.I'm Miller simply made a video call, but it was unclear if it was due to the storm. The signal was consistently poor. Lucas Shepard on the other end also spoke intermittently, reminding her not to leave the hotel alone. She nodded. Her room door was knocked, so she said to Lucas Shepard, "My advisor is probably calling me for dinner. I'll call you back later." Okay. Ultimately, Lucas Shepard never received that video call. An inexplicable unease filled his heart. He repeatedly checked his phone. As time ticked by, he grew anxious and said to the system in his heart, "Why isn't Ellie responding to me? Maybe she's busy," Michael Sterling replied briefly, actually feeling a bit anxious himself. Wait a little longer. He had been speaking less these days, and Lucas Shepard had gotten used to this attitude. He was just feeling lost, which was why he initiated conversation. For some reason, he had a vague, unsettling feeling of anxiety. Not good. Simultaneously with Michael Sterling's voice, a news alert popped up on his phone. Lucas Shepard usually didn't care about these things, but now he subconsciously glanced at it. Magnitude 7.3 earthquake hits Riverside District. Lucas Shepard felt as if he'd been hit hard on the back of his head. It buzzed, and he couldn't even hear Michael Sterling's shouts in his mind. His phone clattered to the floor. Then, with trembling hands, he picked it up again. Eleanor Miller was currently at the epicenter. He couldn't speak, blankly took 2 steps out of the dorm, then quickly turned back to grab his jacket, bank card, and car keys. "You're going?" Michael Sterling's tone was very serious. "Lucas, Riverside will have another earthquake later. It's very dangerous, think carefully." Of course, he almost roared in reply. "No matter how dangerous, I have to go all right," Michael Sterling said calmly. "I can detect Eleanor's location. You know which hotel she's at, right? We'll pinpoint her location then." Lucas Shepard didn't have time to talk, just drove his car out of the garage and onto the highway. "Calm down," Michael Sterling said. "You absolutely cannot get hurt. If something happens to you, who will save Ellie?" Hearing this, he finally eased off the speed, which had been bordering on speeding. As he neared Riverside, the car could no longer go in. The rain was still pouring, and most of the city's buildings had collapsed, looking like post-apocalyptic ruins. Lucas Shepard took several deep breaths, his eyes frighteningly red. The phone's GPS was inaccurate. He only knew the general location of the hotel. He said to Michael Sterling, "It's up to you now." Chapter 25, Michael Sterling was, of course, also panicking. But he knew if he also lost his composure, Lucas Shepard would definitely not find her. The real system's sharp warning tones were constantly assaulting his brain. He endured the intense pain and pulled up the location. "Head southwest, keep going for 15 kilometers, Michael Sterling said intermittently. Fortunately, the hotel wasn't far from the edge of the highway. 15 kilometers wasn't an impossible distance to walk, but looking along the way, Lucas Shepard's tears, mixed with rainwater, streamed down uncontrollably. He choked, no longer caring about much else, his lips trembling. "Tell me, is Ellie still alive?" "Alive," Michael Sterling said. "Her vital signs are good." He didn't tell Lucas Shepard that, as an ordinary system, he had no right to keep the location tracking active for so long for Lucas Shepard to find someone. Right now, Michael Sterling was providing the location under immense, sharp pain and pressure. But Lucas Shepard didn't need to know, and Eleanor Miller didn't need to know either. Sharp rubble on the road nearly made Lucas Shepard fall. As far as he could see, there were incessant cries and screams. Lucas Shepard's heart grew heavy, not daring to imagine what Eleanor Miller was going through. "She's okay," Michael Sterling spoke again. "You can't panic. If you panic, what will she do?" Yes. Lucas Shepard took a deep breath. He was just a young man in his 20s, encountering such a situation for the first time. It was inevitable to be scared. "You've already walked 5 kilometers. Look around for a bicycle and ride it." Lucas Shepard found a shared bike, his hands trembling as he scanned the code. This stretch of road was closer to the city, wider, but also showed more devastation. His tears flowed uncontrollably, almost obscuring his vision. Michael Sterling was still saying something in his mind, but he couldn't hear it clearly at all. He had promised to confess after she came back. He had promised to attend her birthday party. Further in, the bike couldn't go. He abandoned it and dashed into the pile of rubble. Someone shouted behind him, "Don't run in their wait for rescue, there might be aftershocks later." But Lucas Shepard paid no heed, just blindly ran towards that direction. He called Michael Sterling's name several times but got no response. He frowned and said, "Where do I go next?" "Michael Sterling?" After a long time, the voice slowly replied, "To your right, 2 kilometers. Ellie's location is there." Michael Sterling was already in too much pain to speak. A system could provide assistance to its host, but that didn't mean it could continuously use its privileges to check locations. He had endured the excruciating pain for 2 hours. If a soul could be materialized, his would surely be covered in wounds by now. But Michael Sterling's heart was clear. He was very happy he could help Lucas Shepard, because helping him meant helping the currently isolated and helpless Eleanor Miller. As long as he could get even a tiny bit closer to her, Michael Sterling was willing. Lucas Shepard ran extremely fast. His feet were already bleeding from being scraped by the rubble, but he didn't even have a chance to tend to them, just blindly rushed towards the place Michael Sterling had indicated. His nerves were stretched too tight, his stamina nearing its limit. So when he saw the hotel ruins, razed to the ground, Lucas Shepard nearly fainted. Chapter 26, the hotel's location was good, so rescue teams were already searching below. Lucas Shepard, without even catching his breath, quickly rushed into the ruins and began to dig. His fingers were soon scraped raw by the concrete, specks of blood falling to the ground, mixing with his sweat and tears, only to be washed clean by the rain. Someone behind him shouted, "Where did you come from? Why aren't you wearing a rescue suit?" "Boss, this kid doesn't seem to be from the rescue team." A stranger came up to grab Lucas Shepard's shoulder. He continued digging without looking back. The man said angrily, "What are you doing?" "The person I love is under there," Lucas Shepard roared back. "Let go of me." The man froze for a moment, then someone handed Lucas Shepard a shovel. He had rushed over, driving, cycling for nearly a day. Now, without even a sip of water, he dug tirelessly until dawn, his vision slightly blurred. Daylight finally broke and the rain stopped. Lucas Shepard's hands were shaking constantly, his palms covered in blisters. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Lucas!" Like a voice from heaven, he turned his head, stunned, and saw a disheveled In.I'm Miller, still holding a large wad of medical gauze, looking at him in astonishment. His legs gave out and he almost knelt on a steel bar. "It's good you're okay," he murmured. "You're okay? Why are you here?" In.I'm Miller could hardly believe her eyes. She quickly opened a bottle of clean mineral water and helped Lucas Shepard drink it. "Don't you know it's very dangerous here?" "I came to find you." Lucas Shepard held her hand tightly, refusing to let go, a tearful smile on his face. He then hugged her fiercely. "I was really scared to death." In.I'm Miller, who had been a little angry just moments ago, now only felt soft-hearted. She could see Lucas Shepard was exhausted. She patted his back and said, "Come with me. I've actually been helping out in that tent over there. What are you digging for here?" Lucas Shepard let go of the shovel and only then realized his palms were broken, his brow furrowed in pain. He followed In.I'm Miller back to the tent and found her advisor sitting there, a bandage wrapped around her forehead. The junior students were all helping out. In.I'm Miller found some disinfectant to rinse his hands, her expression still not good. The advisor looked at them and suddenly smiled. "Still say he's not your boyfriend?" "Professor," In.I'm Miller paused, then said helplessly, "You're already like this, please say a few less words." The advisor chuckled, beckoned Lucas Shepard over, and motioned for him to sit. "You rushed here from the university?" "Yes." Lucas Shepard could finally rest a bit. Seeing the faint bloodstain on the advisor's forehead bandage, he couldn't help but gasp. "Are you okay?" Chapter 27, What Could Happen to Me? The advisor smiled. "Luckily, it was dinner time. I was taking Ellie and those kids downstairs to eat. We had just walked out a short distance when the building collapsed." Lucas Shepard listened, his heart pounding with fear, repeatedly saying how fortunate they were. "Then your forehead?" "I fell and hit it," she said nonchalantly. "Ellie already took care of it for me." "Lucas, let the professor rest. Come over and help me," In.I'm Miller called him. He immediately stood up and said to the advisor, "Please rest. I'm young, it's nothing. I'll go help her." "Good boy, go ahead." This disaster came so unexpectedly. In.I'm Miller called Lucas Shepard over, but she didn't actually assign him any tasks. She just dragged over a simple but soft cushion, patted his shoulder, and said softly, "You don't have any serious injuries, so you're not suited to sit there, but you're exhausted. Rest here." Lucas Shepard's heart softened. He held In.I'm Miller's hand and said, "Are you injured anywhere? Are you hungry? Tired?" "I'm fine," In.I'm Miller smiled. "But your hands are a mess." 2 of Lucas Shepard's fingernails were torn off and his palms were covered in blisters. In.I'm Miller's lowered eyes held a faint trace of heartache as she carefully disinfected his hands again with iodine. "How did you know I was here?" she asked, somewhat curious. "I don't think I gave you my location." There was no signal in the city anymore. Lucas Shepard's heart skipped a beat. Only then did he realize the voice in his mind had been silent for a long time. His expression carried a hint of worry. After a long moment, he said gently, "No matter what, you trust me, right?" "Yes." In.I'm Miller looked at him steadily for a moment, then actually nodded. "I trust you." Hearing this, Lucas Shepard's brow relaxed. He was about to say something when the ground beneath them shook violently again. All the medicine bottles on the table rattled. Someone outside shouted, "Aftershock, cover your heads and squat down, the tent won't collapse." Without time to think, Lucas Shepard pulled In.I'm Miller into his arms and squatted down with her. Just as the person outside said, the tent structure was simple and definitely wouldn't collapse, but a few poles used for securing it clattered onto his back. Lucas Shepard grunted in pain. Eleanor Miller was startled and immediately tried to struggle free, but he held her tightly. It's okay, he coaxed her softly. It doesn't hurt. After things calmed down, he saw that Eleanor Miller's eyes were actually glistening with tears. Idiot, Eleanor Miller said loudly. Let me see your back. He obediently turned around. It was just a bruise from being hit by the poles. Eleanor Miller's fingers gently touched his back and tears welled up again. Chapter 28, What on earth are you after? She asked, choking back sobs. Do you like me that much? No fireworks, no luxurious decorations, no lively gathering of friends and colorful lights. Lucas Shepard, stunned, responded very softly. Yes, he liked Eleanor Miller that much. On the way here, his mind had been a mess. He had thought that if Eleanor Miller died, he would never like any other girl in his life. Eleanor Miller suddenly hugged him from behind, her tears soaking his clothes. All right, Eleanor Miller said. No matter what you're hiding from me, I'll forgive you. Host, an electronic voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Your current favorability rating is 87%. Lucas Shepard breathed a sigh of relief, turned around to hug Eleanor Miller, and kissed her dusty cheek. Okay, you rest for a while too. I see the rescue teams have basically all arrived outside. Eleanor Miller hummed in agreement, her eyes still moist. Lucas Shepard gently wiped them clean with his hand. Where did you just go? For some reason, Lucas Shepard felt the system's electronic voice seemed somewhat dejected. He remembered its earlier silence and asked with some confusion, Do you guys run on battery too? You could say that, Michael Sterling said softly. Congratulations. When he finally woke up, the first thing he saw was Eleanor Miller tightly hugging Lucas Shepard. He was jealous, pained, and at the same time, he genuinely rejoiced for her. Lucas Shepard truly liked Eleanor Miller. She wouldn't be hurt again. Eleanor Miller's competition was, of course, ruined. Once the roads were cleared for traffic, the group returned to the university. Throughout the journey, Lucas Shepard held her hand tightly, as if afraid she would disappear again. She sighed for that city and for her competition. Her advisor patted her back comfortingly. You'll have more outstanding achievements in the future. Don't worry. She nodded and said to her advisor, Please take care of your health. The two got into Lucas Shepard's car. Looking at the familiar streetscape outside, Eleanor Miller felt as if a lifetime had passed. She noticed the road becoming increasingly unfamiliar and turned to Lucas Shepard. Where are we going? Lucas Shepard smiled. Let's see you try, Eleanor Miller scoffed, took out her phone, and suddenly realized that, unknowingly, it was already her birthday. She already knew their destination, but a sense of pleasant surprise still bloomed in her heart. The spring breeze by the river rustled the green willows. Eleanor Miller saw Grace Goodwin and two roommates, classmates she was on good terms with, and a few junior students. They had been waiting here for a while and greeted Eleanor Miller with beaming smiles. Happy birthday, Eleanor Miller abruptly turned her head to look at Lucas Shepard beside her, surprised. We've been together the whole way. When did you set this up? Before we left, Lucas Shepard kissed the back of her hand and smiled. Let's get out of the car. It was already evening. A few friends slowly approached with a cake, the candles on it clearly showing Eleanor Miller's age. The moment she closed her eyes to make a wish, fireworks lit up the riverside. Chapter 29, Eleanor Miller thought to herself. She had clearly seen grander occasions in the mission world, more exquisite and expensive birthday setups, yet none had moved her heart as much as this moment. She opened her eyes and saw Lucas Shepard, head bowed, looking at her in front of the fireworks. Although I've confessed once already, Lucas Shepard said softly, I still want to say, Ellie, I like you. He held a bouquet of flowers, not white lilies. Eleanor Miller's eyes were a little red. She tried to smile. Such an old-fashioned confession, but I accept. As her words fell, along with the surrounding cheers, a desolate electronic voice announced, Congratulations, host. Favorability has reached 90%. Mission accomplished. After eating cake and watching the fireworks, a few friends playfully pushed Eleanor Miller into Lucas Shepard's arms and left with mischievous grins. They strolled along the riverbank, watching the city lights gradually illuminate in the distance. Eleanor Miller said softly, You told me you have a secret. Can you tell me now? Lucas Shepard wasn't sure, but he didn't want to hide it from Eleanor Miller either. Although he knew she might not believe it, telling her the truth was something Lucas Shepard had to decide. He called out to Michael Sterling a few times in his mind, but the other didn't speak. Walking silently on the road, Eleanor Miller's hand was enveloped by Lucas Shepard's. He said, "No matter what the secret is, you must believe me. I have never lied to you." "I know," Eleanor Miller smiled faintly. "Lucas, are you talking about something related to a mission?" Lucas Shepard's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at Eleanor Miller. "I should have told you sooner." Michael Sterling's desolate voice sounded simultaneously in his mind. "Ellie wouldn't disbelieve you, because she was once a mission taker too, and her target was me." Lucas Shepard was so surprised he was momentarily speechless. Eleanor Miller looked at his expression and knew she had guessed correctly. She tilted her head and said to Lucas Shepard, "You didn't just appear halfway through, so you probably didn't come to this world because of a mission, right? I guess it's because of my car accident, isn't it?" "Yes," Lucas Shepard nodded. "How did you guess?" "Because that's when your attitude changed drastically. At that time, the system told me I had to pay a price. At first, I didn't know what the price was. Now that I think about it, it should be becoming your mission target, right?" Her tone was extremely calm. Lucas Shepard, on the contrary, became somewhat afraid. He tightened his grip on Eleanor Miller's hand, his voice a little tense. "But I like you, not because of any mission, it's—" The next second, a very light, very gentle kiss landed on his lips. "Chapter 30, you don't need to explain to me," Eleanor Miller said softly. "As long as the love is real, that's enough." She hated deception the most, but Lucas Shepard had never deceived her from beginning to end. He said he loved her, and that was true, which was enough. Lucas Shepard's eyes were a little red. None of the events he thought would follow happened. Eleanor Miller was fine, so fine that he thought he was still in a dream. His mission was completed. From now on, Eleanor Miller would no longer have the sword of Damocles hanging over her head. He could love her with all his heart. Eleanor Miller's eyes quietly looked at him, then she smiled. Lucas Shepard couldn't hold back any longer. He cupped her face and lowered his head to kiss her lips. He tasted the salty bitterness of his own tears, but more than that, her sweetness. When they had both calmed down, they sat on a public bench. Lucas Shepard heard a ticking countdown in his mind and asked, puzzled, "What is this doing?" "I have to go," Michael Sterling said calmly. "Thank you for completing this mission. I did many wrong things to Ellie in the past, and in the end, I could never truly make it up to her. Lucas, I hope you will treat her well for the rest of your life." He wasn't just leaving, he was dying. Ordinary systems could move on to the next world after their hosts completed their tasks. They had the right to take breaks. But Michael Sterling was different. He was not originally from this world, nor was he a real system. After overusing all his energy, even his soul would dissipate, and he would no longer exist in this world. Before leaving, he looked at Eleanor Miller one last time through Lucas Shepard's eyes. He said to the main program, "I only have one last wish." The main program said, "If it's not too outrageous, I can agree to your request. I want Eleanor to forget me," Michael Sterling murmured. "To forget all the pain I brought her. This is another world now, isn't it?" After a long pause, the program agreed to his request. "My system has a name," Lucas Shepard said tentatively, looking at Eleanor Miller. He said his name was— His brain throbbed. Something seemed to have completely disappeared. Lucas Shepard said softly, "Michael Sterling?" No one responded. Eleanor Miller frowned, feeling that the name sounded somewhat familiar. But she couldn't remember anymore. "It's not important," she patted the dust off her skirt, intertwined her fingers with Lucas Shepard's and smiled. "Let's go back to the university." "Okay, I like you." "Me too."